I was a kid, and really when I was a teenager, I had this idea in my mind that one day I was going to have to walk through a magical doorway out of childhood and into adulthood. And this idea terrified me because I was scared I didn't have what I needed to move forward into becoming an adult. Turns out that doorway doesn't exist, at least not in the way I was thinking about it. But I know I'm not the only person who has this idea in their mind. If you talk to any adult, you'll discover before too long some part of their mind still thinks they're 15 years old. That idea kind of never totally leaves us. The truth is that it's not a doorway we walk through when we become adults. It's more like a hallway. It's a process. So I want to tell you two stories about conversations I had that changed the course of my life and gave me what I need to go forward. The first one begins when I was an adolescent. So I was a really problematic teenager. I was a terrible student. I had some run-ins with the law, nothing too serious, but nothing. And basically every adult in my life was wondering, what is going on with this kid? When is he going to get it together? I did manage to graduate high school, just barely. And I remember in the summer after I finished high school, I had this conversation with my father. We were in the backyard. Sat down, my dad said, "Michael, I'd like to have a conversation." My dad talks like Hank Hill from King of the Hill, which you all may not know that reference, but that's how he talks. "Michael, I want to talk." And so we sat down, and he said, "When you were a kid, you had this intense curiosity in you. There was something deeply curious, and I don't know what happened to that kid. I don't know what happened to that person, but I hope you can find that. I hope you can reconnect with your curiosity." That's one of the most important conversations I ever had with my father. He planted a seed in my mind that took root. And in the coming months and years, I discovered he was right. I am a deeply curious person. And I managed to get into college, again, barely, just barely. And when I showed up on a university campus, I had this intention of curiosity. I was wanting to learn about the world, and I flourished. I killed it. I was interested in everything, history and sciences and the humanities and arts. I mean, I found myself all of a sudden and found somebody inside who I could be proud of. My dad gave me half the equation right there. Be curious. The second story I want to tell you is kind of a funny twist on what happened next. So I discovered myself to be such a good student that I got kind of addicted to school. I couldn't get away from school. I ended up getting two different undergraduate degrees, one in criminology, one in geology, if you can make sense of that, power to you. I switched majors a few times before getting those degrees. I got out into the real world for a hot minute, and that was uncomfortable, so I was starting to look back at getting an advanced degree. I wanted to go back to school, and somebody told me, you know, if you get a PhD, that can take 4, 5, 6 years, and I'm thinking, great, because I just want to be a student for forever. So next thing you know, I find myself at Stanford University working towards a PhD, and just to pause on that, there is nobody who knew me as a teenager whose jaw didn't hit the ground. That guy, he got into Stanford, really? Sure enough, there I was. And at first it was really great. I loved being on a university campus. This is a place where ideas flourish, where curiosity is valued and nurtured. But I lost myself somewhere around year 4 of my PhD, just as I was starting to run out of school. This was my misinterpretation of the situation, but what I felt like was happening when I was getting a PhD is that they wanted to take me from being a student and turn me into an expert. And I didn't like that very much. I didn't want to be an expert who had answers to things. I was way more comfortable being the person who asked questions. But I got away from that. I lost that skill, and I frankly lost my curiosity there. So one day, I wandered into the Career Development Center at Stanford, and I go in, and I was in a pretty starry state. I started talking to this woman named Diana. She's a career counselor, and I remember emoting. There might have been tears. I'm like, I don't really know what I'm doing. I'm about to run out of school, and I'm not sure what my life's going to look like. And she said something then that totally caught me off guard, changed my life. She said, do you have any creative outlets? And I thought about that for a second. No, I don't have any. I don't do anything creative. No, I don't think I do. And she said, I think you need a creative outlet. And then she said something that I probably took a little too seriously. She said, have you ever thought about starting a podcast? And I said, go on. And she's like, well, you have a lot to say. Obviously. You seem to have a resonant voice. And yeah, I think you need a creative outlet, and I think you should start a podcast. So fast forward 15 years to today. I am an award-winning podcast producer. I've worked with a number of important podcast organizations like the Smithsonian and PRX and Wondery, which is Amazon's premium channel. I fell head over heels in love with podcasting. What I found, to kind of make a long story short, was that podcasting gave me the excuse to ask questions again. It put me back in that seat of being a curious student where I could explore ideas. And I could go on about how much I love podcasting. I think of it as the theater of the mind. It has unlocked all kinds of things for me. I did, by the way, finish my PhD, and my dad he said somewhere in the end of it, that boy's going to have more degrees than a thermometer, which is a good line. Anyway, now today I wake up every day with gratitude, and I absolutely love what I do. I've created and I host several of my own shows, but way more importantly, I help other people create shows and tell their stories. But the point of all this is actually not to sell you on podcasting. I hope you find podcasting and podcasts, I think they're awesome. The point is to go back to what Diana said, the career counselor, about the importance of creative outlets. What I discovered, and what I think she was getting at, is that creative outlets have this power to wake up parts of our mind that we haven't considered. They give us the opportunity to explore parts of our identity. They give our curiosity a target, somewhere to place that energy. What are we going to do as we walk through this hallway into adulthood? So that's the idea that I want to leave all of you with. If you are lost, as long as you have curiosity, you will find whatever it is you need. Thank you.